We are live. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Staked Podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. I want to jump right into this because I don't want to waste any time. This is such a tremendous honor. And sorry, I got a little bit of reverb because I have that in the background. Okay, yeah, we're going to jump right into it. I'm going to go ahead and bring our next guest on, a gentleman who needs very little introduction. Michael Wagner, welcome to Staked Podcast.
Eduardo, great to be here.
Great to have you. You go.
I was saying Chief Cat Officer on the show.
Yes, very excited to have you with us. Appreciate the respect to the Anon community, and up there you are. Awesome.
Turns out I'm not a cat.
Well, it just means so much to me that you've taken this time, and I want to jump right into it. I know there's a lot about you already online people can hear, but just for the guests, people who may not know, tell us a little bit about your background, education, work experiences, everything that led you up to, starting Star Atlas, because I know you have quite a very unique for our industry background. So go ahead and share with the audience.
Yeah, of course. I guess I would just say I've always been entrepreneurial spirited. For as long as I've been alive, I've essentially tried to identify business opportunities. And this goes all the way back to my elementary school days where I was selling products and kind of running opportunities on the playground, if you will. So I've always, one of the stories I like to tell is about, I went to Costco with my mom and picked up a big bag of candy. I bought with my own money, went to the school ground and was selling this candy out on the like next to the snack bar. And the principal actually came by and confiscated my candy, which I'm still bitter about to this day. But anyway, so I've always had kind of little things opportunities that I targeted and business enterprises that I've worked towards. When I got out of college, I graduated with a degree in entrepreneurial finance and went into the traditional finance field. So I'm a CFA charter holder. I worked on in the field of portfolio management, doing things like investment and securities analysis, and portfolio construction and management. I was really fortunate to get introduced to Bitcoin in 2013 through a good high school buddy of mine. And my inroad was through script coin mining. And we grew up, it's relevant probably for the discussion today, but we grew up in an old gamer group, just a bunch of nerds in high school. We were called the Lanarchists. So this was back in the 90s where broadband internet wasn't widely available. And so the only way to engage in a lot of multiplayer gaming was to actually bring your computer to somebody else's house and set up an Ethernet or a LAN, local area network, and play games. And so,
and give us an idea of what year this is
Yeah, this would be like 95, 96, 97.
Okay.
Yeah.
A true millennial baby.
I guess I'm on the cusp, but toward the front end of the millennials, but for sure. So, yeah.
So what were some of your favorite games back then that you and your friends used to play?
We played pretty much everything, but Quake was really popular. Doom, Tribes was one of my favorite games. I don't know that many people know about it. Not a super well-known title, but that one was a lot of fun. Counter-Strike, Half-Life. So I have the honor of being able to say I was in the first deployment of Counter-Strike when it was just a mod for Half-Life back in 1999. And that, obviously that is a game that's persisted through to this day. So yeah. And then, after getting introduced into crypto in 2013, did I lose you?
Oh no, I'm still here. You're just the main camera right now.
Oh, good. Okay, cool. Yeah. So after getting introduced to crypto in 2013, just fully immersed myself in understanding the technology and understanding where the opportunities lie within the industry, and gave up my formal career in 2015, went full-time into crypto, launched my first company, which is a crypto and cannabis company in 2016. It started as the Toast platform, multi-chain ventures today. And then, more recently in 2020, following the trends in not only gaming, blockchain gaming, but NFTs and DeFi as well. We saw the potential to marry all of these various concepts together and create a business around that, and that was the genesis of Star Atlas.
Yeah, I really like the background because it's, you have this entrepreneurial spirit that clearly has just persisted with you. And then you have the early gaming experiences and your background in finance, which definitely is, unique to go from traditional finance now to crypto, I'd say, and provides you with maybe some interesting analyses and legs up, if you will, maybe. I don't know. But what I want to talk about now is just what is Star Atlas? Can you tell us, describe what is Star Atlas as if I've never heard about it?
Sure. And I will just quickly comment that I actually think there are quite a few legacy finance people that are moving into crypto just because the potential there is so enormous. So
Absolutely.
I like to feel like I was one of the first movers, but it's been really helpful in doing things like structuring out tokenomics across our various companies to ensure that we're delivering both utility and value to the people that are purchasing into our crypto assets. And yeah, so it's been helpful from the financial analysis standpoint and business structuring and tokenomic structuring standpoint. But getting into Star Atlas, I guess to simply define it, we are a space-themed MMO, massively multiplayer online game that's being built on the Solana blockchain, and it's really all encompassed within the metaverse concept. And so we can start to dissect all of that, but that's
I would love that. Maybe we could start with the metaverse. It describe exactly what is the metaverse, how you imagine this playing out over the next decade, and will there be more than one metaverse? Are there going to be multi? Do you imagine them to be interoperable? Just some of your thoughts around that.
Yeah, that in and of itself is quite a deep question to unpack because the reality is I don't think there's any clear definition of what a metaverse is, and so and we've been even this week coincidentally have been deeply discussing what in fact do we mean and do we intend to deliver with our metaverse. So I would describe it though as an alternative virtual or digital reality within which a person can persist within, which is to say, like, we live in reality today, and there's all these different things that you can do to live life, and it includes social components, political components, true economic components, and then just your day-to-day activities. So our vision for the metaverse is to essentially replicate that or simulate reality, but in a digital environment, and then allow for the experimentation of how these different systems work. So we very much see it as a place. You can say like Ready Player One type of a system, and the metaverse, in my opinion, has truly not ever been feasible simply because there hasn't been a real world economic incentive mechanism in place. Like in most video games, for example, you can go into the video games, but there's no way really to extract value, which is what we can deliver now with blockchain gaming. So you can effectively create a life for yourself inside the digital universe, and you'll be able to monetize that time and find opportunities and be entrepreneurial for yourself. So for us, it's creating the initial rail for people to be able to enter the game and then have some type of experience that they can engage in, which is really the Star Atlas game mechanics, things like space exploration and mining and territory control, political conquest. All of these things are features that we're delivering. But in the future, it's more about creators coming in and producing their own either player-created content or creative avenue to express themselves within the game. And it could be as simple as, hey, I just want a place where I can go and hang out with my avatar.
Yeah.
It's community. That's one thing. But launching your own business in the space or creating skins that can be sold to other people or things that are completely unrelated even to the game content that we're producing it is really where we see the metaverse going. And we absolutely think that there will be, whether you want to call it a single unified protocol that is the metaverse, or if it's just the ability to laterally move assets across game environments, but technically within this kind of multiverse model, we think that's the future, without a doubt.
Yeah, I really appreciate that insight. I want to be able to jump into the mechanics in terms of the battling, the factions, the staking, all of that of Star Atlas. But before we do, I want to go back to the beginning when you talked about, incorporating DeFi and NFTs. But we do have a question in the chat, and it's actually on topic, so I will go ahead and ask this. Can we have infinite procedural metaverse? I'm not entirely sure what is meant by procedural metaverse, but maybe you have an answer.
I'm trying. Maybe he can clarify, he or she.
Yeah, Kevin, if you could go ahead and clarify that in the chat, and in the meantime, we'll move on. I want to talk about NFTs, DeFi.
Mhm.
What are these? What are these things? I mean, I know, but can you explain to the audience what are these, and how are they important to this new kind of gaming and this, sort of this next level generation of gaming, if you will?
Yeah. So every game that's being launched, and I do actually want to preface it real quick with our game is being developed as a AAA title, which simply means that we hold ourselves to the highest quality standards in both content as well as graphical fidelity. We're building this game out in the Unreal Engine 4 currently, but it will be Unreal Engine 5, which introduces features like Lumite and Nanite for geometry and lighting and even audio. So
So
what?
actually, this is a good time because I did want to talk about this later, but since you brought it up, um, Real Engine 5, so my understanding is this is kind of just the leading edge in terms of graphic abilities, right? So you're really going to feel like it's cinematic, right? In terms of what that feeling is going to be for the people who are playing the game.
That's right. Yeah, it's really impressive what they're coming out with, and it also allows for more unification in created content. So outside developers, third party developers, now we're all essentially building on the same platform or in the same playground, and so assets are created within Unreal Engine.
Okay,
Um,
so Unreal Engine is kind of like this. I'm trying to understand, but it's basically the platform by which developers use to create items in games of a certain quality. I believe you guys are the first blockchain game to implement this high of level of quality in terms of your graphics. Can you maybe speak about some of the challenges that has brought in terms of incorporating, some of these blockchains and NFTs and DeFi?
Yeah, I mean, not so much challenges. The reason
Okay.
why most people don't go with an engine like Unreal Engine is simply because of cost and cost to develop out a AAA quality game. And so, we have great experience in game development. Members of our team that have over 2 decades of experience in building out AAA titles, and so we understand the requirements that go into executing on a game and vision that's as broad as what we're proposing. It's very ambitious, but we understand the input requirements to be able to execute. And so the reason why you don't see a lot of games being produced as AAA titles is just because they're incredibly expensive. Our art team, for example, we grew from, well, let's just say our total team, we had 4 people in December, which were the core founding members, and we're over 45 people today. So over the last 2.5, 3 months, we've scaled significantly, and that's come
Wow.
alongside us making some announcements and raising some capital through asset sales and token sales. But that's put us on the path to being able to build this and execute on this. But I would say that's the biggest limiting factor in building out or building in an engine like this, is just what it's going to cost to ultimately produce the vision. So that's why you don't see a lot of it.
Okay.
Yeah, and yes, you're right. It will produce full cinematic quality. It means VR is going to be enabled and ready upon launch. So, especially as a space exploration type game, like, I am super excited about being able to hop in my spaceship and put my VR headset on and feel like I'm literally traveling through the stars,
Yeah.
navigating the universe.
As I was preparing for this interview, I posted on social media, and one of my childhood friends, he commented, and I was like, yo, this game is literally everything we dreamed of as a kid. Like, that's what this game is. So is it going to be compatible with Oculus Quest, or what sort of VR headsets do you see being compatible with?
Uh, I don't have an answer for you on that yet. We're not necessarily to that stage of development, but all I can really propose is that we'll ensure that they're compatible with all of the mainstream popular VR headsets. I use an H2 Reverb headset personally, but
Actually,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't own a I do not own a headset, admittedly. So that's a is this a is this a recommendation? Are you would you like this one or
Well, it depends on what you want to use it for, and these things are improving quite rapidly. So
yeah, yeah,
unless you want to use it right away, I would say just wait
just
until we
wait.
get a little bit closer. But Valve Index is probably one of the best. Oculus is right up there with the best. The reason I was reticent to use Oculus is because of the tie-in with Facebook. That's just a
Definitely.
personal
Yeah, yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I actually appreciate that. I want to talk about again, go back to this idea of the NFTs and DeFi because I know there's going to be people who are watching this who are gamers who may not have the requisite crypto knowledge, but they're starting to see Mark Cuban talk about NFTs. They're starting to hear about Aave and the different big DeFi protocols. How what do these concepts mean in terms of Star Atlas, and what does it mean for the gamer?
It's really empowering for the gamer, and that's what the why we wanted to deliver a game that's built on blockchain and using using a protocol like Solana, which is the protocol of choice for us. Why it's important is so the NFT asset ownership means that every one of the players has true ownership over the assets that they're playing with in game. So by and large, as it exists today, when you play a video game and you level up and you earn new assets and build your character over time, that's all completely locked in that game universe. And for the most part, the game development companies try to restrict your ability to I don't want to say monetize it, but they restrict your ability to sell those assets to anybody else, and they prohibit or restrict things like, earning gold in game, gold farming, and then selling that to other players. So we're doing the opposite of that. We're saying, well, one, you own all the assets, you're buying into them, you own them. Any improvements on those assets over time, those are also entirely yours. And further, we're building in an NFT marketplace so that players can freely exchange that with one another. So there's peer-to-peer exchange of these NFT assets, as well as having the ability to purchase assets from us through the marketplace. So that's the first part where it's really important is that time that you commit and spend in this game actually has a return on value to you as the player, beyond just the entertainment value. We all love video games. It's great to go spend a couple hours playing a video game, or in my case, spend like 8 hours playing an MMO back in the day, and just my whole weekend. Fun. It's really fun, but it's also fantastic if you can unlock some of that value from the time that you've been spending, and pull that back. So NFTs just mean true asset ownership by the player. In our case, that's things like ships, crew, components, virtual land, so real estate, buildings and structures that go on that land. These are all entirely owned by the player. So we couple that with additional financial incentive mechanisms, which are delivered through crypto native assets, so cryptocurrencies or tokens that are built into the game. In our case, there's two of them. We operate a dual token ecosystem. Atlas is the transactional currency. This is effectively the in-game gold. It's used for all operating costs and purchasing things like consumables or repairing your ship and refueling your ship. All of the traditional expenses that you would incur in a game, that's what Atlas is utilized for. Polis is our governance token, and it's used for two different things in itself. Within the game, you can politically dominate regions of space, and so it introduces this strategic element that people, kind of need to assess in where they end up in the universe and who's controlling that region, and what can those arbiters impose on them as players. One of the key mechanics is to be able to impose taxes on other players, and maybe so if you're not in a guild, for example, if you're not in a clan, but that clan controls the region, well, the clan's going to start taxing you for being. And it's kind of like, well, you're getting protection a little bit from the clan, so you have to pay us for the privilege of being in this space.
And it's possible that my land could be located in maybe a fraction so they might charge me more for being a landowner and things like that's up to them, I presume.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, we'll be implementing some caps, so somebody can't just tax you. But a lot of this is also intended to be discovered through the governance system as well. So using Polis to introduce changes to the game mechanics and gameplay itself, is means that somebody could say, well, we want to unlock this cap from 10% to 50%, or we think a 10% cap's too high. I'm going to propose we reduce it down to 2%, and then Polis holders will be able to vote on that. Now, so the second purpose of Polis is also for long-term development decision-making process and moving towards a purely decentralized development structure. This is really the stuff that's 10 years down the line or 15 years down the line. But effectively being able to say, vote on economics in the game, or vote on feature releases or new asset releases. We as a development company can come out and say, well, we've got these 5 ships that we could build, but they're all going to take some time. Which one do you want to see us build first? And then the community can vote on that. So those are the dual functions of the currencies or the tokens within the game. By playing, you're largely going to be earning Atlas. So mining operations, for example, will be generating Atlas for you. There's a whole loop wherein you take these the minerals that you're mining, you can refine those to alloys and to metals and to other materials, and ultimately the player will be able to take all of the underlying material inputs and generate their own NFTs. It's going to be proportional to the amount of like the size of the ship, for example. So if you want to build a capital size ship, it might take you 6 months or a year to actually generate the materials to build it, but that asset might also be worth $100,000 or $200,000. So
it's really this ability to like earn as you play, essentially.
That's right.
I want to talk to you, man. There's so many just really interesting things that you've said just in the last 2 minutes. By the way, I want to say to the audience, so Star Atlas, the name came in part inspired by Atlas Shrugged, right?
Right.
Yeah, and I'm a huge Ayn Randian fan. But I like this idea of discovering Atlas and decentralized governance of the system over time, as you kind of mentioned. That's so new, and I'm just interested to hear kind of your, philosophical, musings on in terms of what does decentralized game making mean, and like what does that look like, if you had to guess 10 years from now, in terms of, is there a sole developing studio? Are there going to be pockets of developing studios who are generating things? Because it really is kind of like being an early adopter of this game is like joining, it's like almost like being a not a pilgrim, but like a pioneer.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I mean, I use the term of like new America moment. I've used that in the past, and it does feel like you're kind of, you're venturing out into the unknown and you're exploring a new space, but not necessarily geographically. In this case, it's really just more mentally exploring a concept and what's possible. So very difficult to determine what this is going to result in 5 to 10 years. But I can tell you that our intended path of execution is to start as the centralized organization that we are today. It's just absolutely essential. Again, we understand the requirements to deliver a product like this. And so eventually we'll get to a point where we have a polished, enjoyable, entertaining product that, by the way, is not, we're not building for the crypto community or the blockchain gaming niche. We're building for a mainstream audience, which is why we wanted to go with the caliber of content that we're creating. But over time, and with our own governance system, we can introduce this economy wherein people are able to contribute in some way, and feature development and asset development and experience development can all be delivered through some type of voting system. So we see ourselves as, over time, operating from the sole deciders of what happens within the game to just being another contractor in the metaverse. So, if the community determines that we have capabilities and talent that they want to pay for, well, we determine some type of model wherein we can be compensated by the metaverse itself, not by other players, and then we generate content for it. And so can everybody else, by the way. That's the beauty, right? So everybody will have the potential to contribute in some way as long as there's demand for whatever it is that they're creating.
Yeah, I really agree with the idea of starting centralized in order to become decentralized, because I think that 2020, we saw a lot of experiments in terms of what happens if you decentralize too quickly, which has its own host of issues. But I do want to talk about the two token model because, with your financial background and the two token model, which I think is relatively unexplored in terms of the tokenomic possibilities, tell us about why you guys decided that was, the best idea for you in your game.
They really just serve two independent functions, right? I mean, one is I'm trying to think of maybe an appropriate analogy, but if without getting too far out on the political spectrum here, but effectively we wanted people to be able to participate in governance optionally. And so it's as simple as that. You either want to be involved in protocol game development or strategic governance within the game, or you don't. And if you don't, that's fine. You don't have to own Polis. Just focus on using Atlas and earning Atlas and reinvesting that into assets. But one is just purely transactional, and the other one is politics. And you don't necessarily want to marry the two, combine the two, or we end up in a system where all the politicians are effectively owned by lobbyists, right?
Yeah.
So we just see them as separate functions that are necessary to execute on the model. And again, going back, it's social elements, it's economic elements, it's political systems, and then that's all wrapped up in the metaverse. So they're all just independent systems.
Yeah, because I guess this is for the first time I'm starting to see it's kind of like learning from the mistakes of history almost in creating the separation between governance of this metaverse and the creation of money.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about staking assets. Tell us about this functionality and the importance of staking to the players.
There's a bunch of different ways that you can use staking, and maybe I'll just round out the discussion around the various methods that we're using blockchain. So again, it was NFTs, it's our own crypto native assets, Atlas and Polis, and then the incorporation of things like DeFi protocols into the game as well, which really enables players to generate yield off of assets that are owned. We want to ensure that the individual, whether it be gamer or investor, speculator, or token holder, and those are really the three stakeholders that we see are ourselves, central game developer, token holders, and then gamers, which are inherently also token holders. But if you don't necessarily want to play in Star Atlas the game, but you want to have a stake in the economy, you can do so just simply by owning the tokens and then participating in our DeFi pools. And it will be Atlas or Polis paired against something else, or it will be participating in the fractionalization of actual NFTs that can be owned by players. Now, participation in staking purely just generates a reward for you. This is really not a proof of stake network whatsoever, but it is a way to deliver value to that person who's holding the token. So that's one path. DeFi pools are a second path. Where I think there's a tremendous amount of potential is actually in staking your NFT assets. And what we want to accomplish with that is allowing players to contribute them to pools wherein other players can borrow them or rent them rather. So we create this sharing economy around game assets, kind of like an Airbnb, except instead of staying in someone's house, you're borrowing their ship for the day. And you get to earn revenue off of that ship, and they get to earn revenue off of you because you're paying to rent it. And there's all kinds of complications that can be introduced as a result of that. One of the most compelling and interesting game mechanics, in my opinion, is something that we call play for keys. And it's a high risk, high reward style of really ruthless gaming.
Yeah.
And effectively through our security zone system, you get exposed to higher degrees of risk. And so when you get out into deep space, if you lose an engagement with another player and they destroy your ship, it actually gets permanently destroyed. So it's permadeath. But the reward is significantly higher for any activity in that space. So whether you're mining or owning land or running a space station that people can land on, all of the rewards are significantly higher. And then also, if you're the one that's in a fleet of pirates that are just killing these one-off ships, you get to salvage some of the stuff that was on their ship. So this could be like ejected crew members, or it could be modules or components from their ship, or in some cases, you can salvage the hull and then use that to rebuild as an NFT. But naturally, this creates deflation in the asset issuance, which allows for new asset issuance in the future without creating rampant inflation.
Yeah. And I just like how it mimics the real, like real life, you know, if I was to really go. Um, so to that end, when when I jump into Star Atlas and I create my character, and maybe
Mhm.
this is just a great way for us to segue into the game mechanics and start talking about those factions. If I create a character and then I go into the high risk, state of the play for keys, if I die or my ship gets blown up, do I lose that character? Do I have to kind of restart as if, like it's Ready Player One type of scenario? And then maybe
Yeah.
from there, just go into the different factions and what that means, and how players are going to enter into the universe.
Right. So yes, I mean the short answer is yes. Your assets get destroyed. Whatever you were playing with in that region up deep space gets destroyed, and that's the purpose. Is so the other player can then recapture some of those items off of you. So naturally, you don't end up in deep space initially. Immediately. You start out in a safe zone, which is relatively small, but there's also no risk from other players. So there's no PvP at all. You can own your land there. You can still participate in mining there. You can still navigate the stars. We have this really cool data running game mechanic as well. So people that just want to fly around in space and discover new regions, they can essentially monetize the data that they're gathering as a result of that and sell that to other players. So the whole map won't be revealed to everyone, right? It's only once you've discovered it or purchased the underlying data package that introduces where that land is at. But you start off in a safe zone. As you get more adventurous, you can go into the medium risk zone where there is PvP engagement, but it's non-permanent death. And so, you'll respawn with a penalty, but no risk of losing everything. The rewards there are a little bit higher, but really the highest rewards and where all of the densest materials are exist in this area where it's the riskiest.
Why is this new model? Well, actually, before I ask that question, so I join into the Star Atlas. I'm in a safe zone, and there are three different factions: the Mud, the Oni, and the Ooster.
Mhm.
My understanding is the Mud is like the biggest alien. The Oni is like almost human, and Ooster is like a combination of the two. But maybe you can give us a better explanation.
Yeah, mud is more of the human kind of descendants, human race. The Oni are the alien species, and then the Ooster is a kind of a spiritually inclined android race, if you will. So it's really humans, aliens, and android.
Okay.
Yeah.
And these different factions, they'll have different abilities. How much I guess kind of development has gone into thinking about what limitations and what maybe bonuses each of these factions will, or is that, are we getting too deep into you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, so we genuinely, outside of our pre-production that took place over the course of last year, we're about 3 months into actual development right now. So I will say, from a roadmap standpoint, the next major milestones include a pure collectible series, digital art collection that we call Rebirth. We can get into that a little bit later, but that's coming in April. In July, we're going to be launching a mini game version of this, which is an in-browser experience, which allows you to engage in many of the gameplay loops. All of that's just to say we don't have everything fully fleshed out for how the factions are going to work and what specific characteristics of players in those factions will be. But the idea is to allow people from really any race within the metaverse to be able to interact with one another. And so you're not stuck as like in the Android faction if you select an Android character, and likewise with the aliens or humans. We still see it as being highly interactive, but where we'll probably see more differentiation is in what specific like minerals are available in each one of the factions. And so we're actually trying to encourage people from different factions to work with one another. But there might also be some form of uh, territory control that's related to the individual factions that creates some interesting gameplay as well.
And in the Discord, which I will add the Discord link to the description after we have ended this for anyone who watches the rerun. um, I've started to see some informal guilds start forming. Tell us about that. some of your thoughts. I think it's very exciting, and to start seeing, people who are already starting to ally themselves and create informal guilds. What role do you see these guilds playing in Star Atlas?
They will have the biggest roles. I mean, the whole system is designed around control of economic resources, and what better way to do that than to form factions and alliances and combine resources with other people. We had a really interesting event take place just this week, wherein two of these independent guilds that are currently recruiting players formed an alliance, and they took a snapshot of that alliance, and they actually formed an NFT off of it. And each one of the guild leaders got one of the NFTs. I think it's incredible. We're able to right now document history in a way that has never been executed before, and now we have this permanent record on chain of this alliance, right? So you can essentially now refer back to that at any point in the future if this alliance breaks up and they start fighting with one another. I think it's really cool.
That is really cool. And it's like history being made. Um, can you tell us about the intergalactic asset offering? I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I know there's one July 24th. Is that there's, I think there might be an earlier one as well. What kind of assets are there going to be offered? How can investors be prepared on July 24th to take advantage of that? And yeah, any other alpha leaks that you want to slip up and tell us?
Yeah, I appreciate it. There's a lot of requests for information from us right now, and trust me, we are working as diligently as we can to get information disseminated out. So the roadmap ahead, as I said, are really two major milestones. And some of this differs from what was originally in the white paper. We have to be dynamic and nimble here in our execution. The economic substance of our company changed significantly since the beginning of the year. So we've altered our intended approach of launching actual game assets in advance of the game in April. So instead of doing that, we've come up with a poster series, as we call it. And again, this is titled Rebirth, which is a series of 14 posters that introduce lore and background to the game, the genesis of Star Atlas. So each week, one of these posters will drop. They'll be unveiled and they'll be dropped. Essentially uncapped supply, but it has a bit of a unique, pricing model behind it. And so I don't want to share too much about that right at the moment, but I will tell you, as you progress along and collect more of the posters, you're going to be receiving some bonuses. So if you collect the first 3 posters, for example, you get a custom skin, you get a custom emote, and you also get a custom pet that will never be generated again. And as you press up the scale, you'll actually be receiving some NFT game assets as well, so ships or land or things like this. But they'll all be, all of the art is really beautifully done. It was designed by us in-house. We have AR overlays on this, so it becomes more interactive. And then we also have audio tracks being paired to each of these by mainstream artists. So the collection itself is going to be, I think, attractive to many just pure NFT collectors, even though they aren't game assets. And maybe one additional alpha leak on that is we formed a relationship with a platform called Uniquely. And their platform is designed for the fractionalization of NFT portfolios. So what you can effectively do if you purchase all of the posters is deposit those to an account at Uniquely, and then allow other people to invest in your portfolio. So you're really allowing more people to get access, even as a small share of the entire collection. And then you, as the owner, get to de-risk yourself a little bit from the total size. So
if someone wanted to start being a collector of these posters, that's not going to start until the summer.
So that comes up April 24th is our official launch on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to clarify that.
Yeah. So, and then the idea was to ensure that we have touch points with the community throughout this process, throughout the development process. And so that series runs up until mid-July, which is when we'll be preparing for our main debut, which is the launch of all of the NFT in-game assets that you can purchase, as well as our token generation event. We'll be running our IDO and IEOs. We have a lot of great outlets and venues that are interested in hosting an allocation. And so
So you
We
imagine that'll be kind of distributed across some of these different um, NFT marketplaces. So it won't just all be in one. It might be some at this one, some at, OpenSea, some here or there. Is that how you plan to see?
Exactly. Yeah, for both events, really. So
Okay.
we'll actually have the first version of our game UI, our mini game UI, which is going to be used exclusively for sale of the posters. But we'll also be hosting on OpenSea, and there's one or two other marketplaces that we might use for the NFTs. Um,
I have a question if I can just interject. How do
sure.
you so I've been seeing some different models around. This is, I mean, the intergalactic offering, this is very new. I think I've seen some other games do these asset offerings, but even just with coin offerings, we've seen I don't know if you're familiar with Luxo, but they did like this reversible ICO. And so,
Mhm.
have you guys created any procedures or any thoughts about how to make the initial galactic offerings as fair in the beginning and accessible, and so it doesn't become like a gas fee war type of thing? And then also, what advice do you have in terms of, hey, how do you be prepared? Because I've tried to participate in some of these things, like Polka Pet, for example, and they sell out so quickly. You if you don't have your money in your MetaMask, ready to go, you're gonna miss out, and people don't want to miss out on this. So what advice can you give to us to be prepared?
Yeah, I mean, one benefit of building on Solana is that it is not only extremely high transaction throughput capabilities, 50,000 transactions per second currently capable on mainnet, but low transaction costs, so 1/100th of a penny per transaction. Yeah, and now we will be launching across both Solana marketplaces as well as Ethereum marketplaces. Obviously, our advice would be one, get your Solana wallet set up, and there's a number of them.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
great. Can you go ahead and throw out your favorite? This is going to be a great segue to us talk about Solana, which has been in the background of our whole conversation, but I really want to focus on it. So continue with this advice.
yeah, I mean, there's a couple of great wallet applications out there already. I personally use Solong is the browser plugin wallet that I use. Sol Flare is really good if you're connecting it up to a hardware wallet. And then I think one of the more promising wallets that's coming out right now is Phantom, which is going. You're also going to be able to host your NFTs alongside the metadata within your browser plugin wallet. So Phantom, I think there's still in closed beta, so not everybody can get access to it, but by the time we go live, that should be available to the public.
Yeah.
So, and the nice thing about like Solana right now is they've already built out a bridge between Solana and Ethereum. It's called Wormhole, and also Phantom will have this bridge native in the wallet itself. So if you have assets on MetaMask that you want to bring over to Solana, and they support virtually every wrapped asset that you can imagine, including Bitcoin and Ethereum and USDC, USDT. We'll be accepting a wide range of different payment types of cryptocurrencies specifically. But that would be the most important thing is play around with Solana a little bit. You'll find it's really easy. There's also some great DeFi right now on Solana. Radium is really cool. Mango Markets, Bonfida. Bonfida has their little sister entity that's called Solable, which is an NFT marketplace. So I would suggest that you play around with Solana a little bit because the costs are much lower. But if you still want to go with Ethereum, we will have venues set up that people can purchase assets through. And in terms of fairness, the idea is to spread this out to multiple marketplaces. So we're not driving all of the traffic to one place and then it becomes this battle for whoever clicks their mouse fork first, right? It maybe a little bit of strategy involved with which avenue or venue you want to purchase from, but there will be several. And then finally, on the game asset side of things, I think the token sales will probably be oversubscribed based on what we've seen to date. But with the game assets, we do want to make sure that there's a delicate balance between having too much supply, which is decreases the value of each one of the underlying NFTs, but also making sure that we have enough so that everybody can get into the game. We don't want people to feel like they have to bid 10x on an item just so they can get into the game. And so we're launching with fixed prices. Virtually everybody should be able to purchase a starter ship, and it's going to be somewhere between $5 and $20. So reasonable cost to get in and start playing the game. Costs do go up considerably, but I guess what I'm suggesting is don't be so concerned about us selling out game assets because we want to make sure everybody can play.
Okay.
I think token sales are going to be more restricted,
No,
limited
this
in the.
was so much value in what you've already just put out in the last 5 minutes there. I have just been inspired to go and try to create some tutorials on these Solana wallets and stuff. So I just definitely want to be prepared for when that happens. So thank you for that. And
Love it.
talking about Solana, is this me more trying to pick your brain in terms of how you see this industry developing? I've heard you refer to Solana as a third generation layer one. Can you
Mhm.
explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean it's just evolution of the
Mo-
protocols over time.
Yeah, mostly I guess what is it about Solana that makes it sort of this third generation, and how do you see these layer one protocols being interoperable?
I well, starting with Solana being Gen 3 blockchain is one. They've created a unique consensus mechanism with a proof of history timestamp that allows them to introduce parallelization and scalability in the subsequent transactions. So everybody essentially, all of the validators on the network have consensus based on this proof of history timestamp, which is different than how Bitcoin comes to consensus in that the timestamp is included in every block. So instead of doing that, there's this isolated function that everybody agrees on first, and then you can get massive scalability in the underlying transactions that occur. So that's one of the differentiators for them, and that's one of the reasons why they can get 50,000 transactions per second versus, say, a Generation 2 blockchain like
Which is
EOS,
something more like Ethereum.
Ethereum, EOS.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We're still seeing like EOS is, I think, something like 3 to 5,000 transactions per second. But again, looking at Solana, you're on a magnitude higher capability. And then Bitcoin was just the first generation blockchain.
Yeah, yeah.
And also like the script coins were first clones of the first generation blockchain. So that's all I mean by that is the
Okay.
features that are being
Yeah.
introduced over time and how
Yeah,
things
no,
are.
that makes a lot of sense. I just kind of I like to try to learn other people's industry, their frameworks, and that framework is one I've heard before, but definitely just wanted to hear it kind of repeated for the audience. I do want to turn. I know we have like maybe 10 more minutes before you have to go. I want to go ahead and just say thank you up front for your time. It means a lot to me, to my audience. But some of these questions are coming in, and they're really good. So Kevin, he asked the question initially, and he gave us some clarification. So he says, "Can we have infinite procedural metaverse like No Man's Sky, no edge to the map? Every atom could be tokenized." So if that doesn't make sense to you, we'll just move on. I'm a little confused by it myself, but maybe try to answer it the best you can.
No, I mean this is a little bit above my technical pay grade, to be honest, but we are shooting for no skybox in the game. So
Okay.
in theory, you can just perpetually explore space. You can just continue in a straight line and it never ends. To the extent that we can have granularity in each point of space, there's some limitations in terms of how much data can even be stored on blockchain. So a lot of this is to be explored, let me say that, but our intention is to develop out a zero skybox game wherein everything can be explored into perpetuity. So I guess the answer is we're trying. I can't give you a guarantee right now.
Thank you for that. Next question comes from GXC. He asked, "Will the ship renting also include the crew, and that the owner allowed to have rented? So if you rent a ship, will you also get the crew with it?"
That's a really good question, and it's going to be a requirement. So just thinking out loud with you here, because it's not something we've considered, but I imagine if it did not come with a crew, then we would have some method to maybe from a game developer standpoint, us allowing people to rent crews for particular ships to make sure that they're sufficiently staffed. But really good question. Was GXC?
Yes, GXC. Thank you for that question, and thank you.
GXC, I've seen you all over the place, so thanks for the question.
Good community member. Thank you. He actually asked a second question: will skins be a one-time use or multiple uses?
We think they should be multiple uses. The skins will be NFTs, so you can apply it or unapply it, and then turn around and resell it if you want to, use a new skin later.
David, he asks, when could we start buying land, NFTs, real estate? So when can we start buying land?
That's all going to take place in July. So the main debut, July 24th.
Awesome. Last set of questions comes from Dushan, and he says, I really dig the idea of in-game assets not being boxed into the game. Play equals earn assets equals cash out. Will assets in game be exchangeable? I believe you've answered that already, but go ahead and answer again. You probably came in a little late there, Deshaun.
Yeah, I mean, so we have the NFT marketplace built directly into the game UI. So you're able to buy assets from us, and you're also able to buy and sell assets with other players on a peer-to-peer basis. And then I guess like a worst case scenario, you can always deconstruct your NFT and then get the underlying components from that and use that as a revenue stream as well. I did want to touch on one point with respect to deep space exploration and the whole renting concept. Obviously the last thing you want to have happen is somebody rents your ship from you and then they go lose it in deep space. So we will have to introduce a framework that restricts that, making sure that players can't, rent your asset and then turn around and sell it on the marketplace. So there's going to be a lot of thought that goes into this, but that's the vision and the direction we'd like to go. And the other place that we're seeing that interest in that being utilized already is with the various clans. Yield Guild Games, we have a relationship with them. They're a stakeholder and also intend to have operations within the game. And what's really cool about that is they're supporting this community and these members that are all from the Philippines. And even if the underlying players that are in the guild can't purchase the assets, they're on a guild scale, they're actually purchasing the assets and then letting their members play with them, which I think it's really empowering for people all over the world, because they're actually able to make more money playing these video games than they are by going and working a real job. So, this is what I'm talking about with like the opportunities that we can create.
It's wild, and I think that's just the great segue to these last two questions, because these ones are the ones I'm honestly most excited about. How does Star Atlas and games like it make the world more competitive and fair?
Yeah, to me, it goes back to that point of granularity. So I think about economics as being relatively blocky or chunky right now. In the future, people will be. I'm seeing an evolution of this already through things like influencers, social media type stuff. People that are able to participate in activities that are actually of interest to them and on timescales that are of interest to them. So in our case, yes, it's a video game. You can go in and play. You can earn money for doing so. But as I said, you can also, if you're creative enough or industrious enough, you can find an opportunity for yourself. I just think that it allows for a higher degree of granularity in the way that people can monetize their time and participating in activities that are actually enjoyable to them. So that's kind of the ultimate dream, the utopian state where you don't have to go and work a job that you don't like. You don't have to spend time doing something. It's our most valuable resource, time, and it's the most limited resource. So to the extent that you get to work in a way or engage in life in a way that is attractive to you, it just raises quality of life. So that's where I think we're just making a game, but the game has economic incentives in it. But really what it does is introduces new opportunities for a global population.
How can Star Atlas live forever? That's my last question.
Yeah, we're thinking about that. This isn't intended to be a short-term project or a short-term vision. So as I was saying earlier on, part of that model of moving towards pure decentralization is how we can create a product that lives on forever, because then people will constantly be focused on it, working on it, contributing to it, modifying it, improving it. All of these things are necessary for a product to live on forever. And once we establish the foundation, which is what we, again, are focused on today, once we build the foundation, we move into pure decentralization, and then it becomes everybody's a tool for everybody.
Michael, thank you very much for your time. It means a tremendous amount to me, to my audience, and I'm so excited for April 24th and for July 24th. What's with the 24? Just
Just
Kobe?
for
Just Kobe moment?
yeah, honoring Kobe.
Well, is there any? I want to give the last word to you. Any closing thoughts? Anything that I didn't ask that I should have, or anything you thought we'd discuss that you feel like people should definitely hear before we close this?
No, Eduardo, man, this was great. I really loved the discussion. We'll definitely do it again in the future, especially as we get a little farther along in development.
Yes,
We'd love to hop on and do some gameplay demoing when the time is right.
that would
So,
be
yep.
awesome. That would be awesome.
I would
Well,
just, what I would close with personally is just, a big thank you really to the community, because there's been so much like passion and enthusiasm and encouragement for what we're doing. And I'm just completely mind blown every day I wake up, and people are so excited about this. And like, I know people can't wait, but it just keeps us moving forward every single day, because the passion is there. You can see it and feel it. So
Well, I'm so excited just to continue to send out vibes to your team as you guys continue to grow and support you guys on social media. And I mean, I haven't shut up about this game for at least 2 weeks now. So I'm very excited to just be part of this new adventure and this frontier. So thank you again, and look forward to us being able to talk in the future as things progress.
we'll see you in space, my friend.
Yes, take care.
All right, thanks.